All right, just got back from actually filming an elopement, something that I haven't done nearly as much of, as I'm primarily a photographer, but I think especially because of this YouTube channel, I have jumped in a lot more to the whole filmmaking world, and I think part of my ADHD brain just has really wanted to get more into filmmaking lately. So I decided to kind of put myself out there and see if anybody would be interested in me doing an elopement film for them. So today we're going to break down some of that, talk about a lot of the gear and things that I brought, why I brought them, and show how much of that stuff actually got used and was useful in this elopement. Now, in case you're interested, everything you're gonna see here is graded with my Cascade LUTs. They are from Gamut, and they make a bunch of other wedding and elopement related stuff. Mine specifically are actually designed based off my Cascade presets, which are, very like adventure elopement-y kind of based. They also have a really good filmic kind of look to them. So obviously they're going to pair really, really well with the type of stuff that I was doing on this elopement. So if you want to check that out, that would be awesome. And then if not, and you don't want to spend any money, I put the little subscriber count back there somewhere. And I'm on a journey trying to get to 100,000. We just passed 70,000 recently. So liking and subscribing, as much as it's annoying, it would be super helpful. Now, I will say, because of this YouTube channel, I definitely have some more sort of extreme bits of gear that I don't think most wedding filmmakers necessarily need. And some of this stuff is definitely going to be a bit overkill and not exactly what I would recommend for everybody. But I'll go over each camera and lens setup and why I brought them and give you kind of my actual feelings about each of them. Right off the bat, this was the main camera that I used throughout the entire day. This is the Sony FX3. On it, we have the Samyang 35-150 f2 to 2.8, a ridiculous range and a really fast aperture. So getting an f2 at 35 and then moving up, I think around like 70, 80 millimeters is when it switches over completely to 2.8, and then you have 2.8 throughout the rest of the range there. Being able to have a singular camera and be able to go from 35 all the way to 150. I don't think that most people need that. I think that maybe for like a second shooter or something, having a massive range like that is going to be really, really helpful. But I will say that the reason that I wanted to make sure that I had a little bit extra reach is because when you're up in the mountains and you have these amazing landscapes, you want to be able to really capture the essence of what it's like to be up there. So having something that's going to be wide enough to really give you that full perspective of being there, but also being able to zoom in to some of the tighter things ends up being really helpful. So this was the main lens. Most of the time it was in that 35 to 85-ish range. So definitely could have been done with a typical 24-70. And if I did have a 24-70, it's most likely going to be a better choice for more things, I think. But this obviously covers quite a range, and I definitely used the 100 millimeter plus range a decent amount because of the setting that we were in. Just having this and also knowing that it's not going to overheat, it's just kind of like the ultimate wedding camera workhorse. And then on top here, we have the Sony ECM B10. The nice thing about this is there are no cables. There's just nothing to fuss around about. It's fairly small and lightweight, and especially with a larger lens like this, you're not going to notice it's even on here. The other bonus is that if you do put it on another camera, even if you pull it up to your face, the nice thing is it's not going to be sticking back and you're not going to be hitting your forehead or anything like that, like some of the other microphones. The only downside is that you are a little bit married to the MI smart hot shoe thing here. That's why this whole setup was the way that I decided to go. The other thing was that I knew that it might be raining, and so it kind of doubled not only as a hot shoe, MI shoe cover, but also was able to give me obviously great audio throughout the day. Now, one of the things that even as a filmmaker that isn't very active in the wedding scene, most people are shooting everything at 60 frames a second so they can slow it down. I really, really love to have good classic motion blur with 180-degree shutter, which means you're basically just doubling whatever your frame rate is. So if you are at 60 frames a second, your shutter speed is 120, or if you are at 24 frames a second, your shutter speed is either at 1/48 or 1/50. And the vast majority of time, I actually just shot all of this stuff at 24 frames a second, mostly because I just don't necessarily like that slow motion thing for everything. It kind of just like over dramatizes things in a way that isn't necessary a lot of times for things. And it's more of a feel thing. So like at times, sure, slow motion can be great, but overusing it is something that annoys me a little bit about the wedding industry. So for the vast majority of time on all these cameras, I actually used everything at 24 frames a second, which means I can't slow it down. And that's where really knowing your shots, making sure that you are getting long enough takes, and making sure that your stuff is stable enough is going to be really, really useful. I want to take a quick second to pay some bills and thank Bluetti for sponsoring this video. Bluetti has recently released the Hands-Free 2 Backpack Power Station, which can provide an incredible amount of power on location. So you can say goodbye to dead batteries or tangled cords on your shoot, because this innovative backpack comes with a high capacity power station built right in, so you can charge cameras, drones, lights, laptops, all that kind of stuff anywhere and everywhere. It has 4 fast charging USB ports, a full 700-watt AC outlet, and fits directly into this really, really nice backpack. You're able to charge the battery from 0 to 80% in only 45 minutes, and the battery's capacity has the ability to charge something like your camera over 20 times, a laptop up to 7 times, your phone around 18 times. So it's obviously much, much larger in capacity, but also an output where you can power a full lighting setup off this thing. Backpack is ready for the elements with a rain cover included, and is also accessible for solar power in case you want to go completely off grid and continue to replenish your power. A few of the things I really love about the backpack is the fact that you can put the power station directly into it, and then you still have room for a full camera and large lens on top of where that sits, which is readily accessible to me, the user. It also has a large divider portion where you can store lots of camera gear, and just has tons of other space where you can carry things like tripods, extra lenses, batteries, all that kind of stuff. So for me, there's nothing better than knowing that there will be power on me at all times, especially for those different gigs where I might not even have good power where I'm staying the night before. So thanks again to Bluetti for sponsoring this video. You can check out more about this in the description down below. So primary camera, I had this on one side on a holdfast strap. So I had these set up with these little peak design things, and then had one on each side. So I had this on one side for the entire time. And then my kind of secondary camera was the Sony A9III, has a global shutter, is amazing in video, has like all of the same video specs for the most part as the FX3. But I paired this with the 20mm so that I could have a wider field of view, trying to get a little bit more of the expanse and the landscape of things. And I added this little top panel here so I could detach it from the dual camera harness and be able to get some shots a little bit lower to the ground and things like that. Now, one of the things I really hope the FX3 Mark II ends up having, and I'm sure it will, is this particular flip screen. So I really love the ability to keep the screen on axis to where the lens and everything is. I really don't like it being off to the side. It's a personal preference thing, but the nice thing about the A9III, the A7R5, and the newest of the Sony cameras is that you can do both. So I'm assuming if there is an A7S4 and then an FX3 Mark II, they will both be getting this screen. And honestly, even just for this screen, it might be worth the upgrade. Now, I still think that 2 cameras is always necessary in case one goes down. So I had both these cameras on me at all times, as well as one additional lens in the bag. That lens was a 50mm because if either the 20mm went down or the 35-150, 50mm is just like a classic focal length. So that lens was in the bag at all times. And then on the kind of secondary thing here, we have the A7R5, which is again going to be a more of a photography camera, but has good video specs. This thing can shoot in 8K. But I shot this thing in 4K and no big deal. And then I paired it with the 135 1.8. So this thing is an incredible lens. And I wanted to have a shot during the ceremony that was going to be far enough back, that was going to be out of the way, kind of like a long tele safety shot, So the way I set it up was to have the couple and the officiant like full body, and then I can kind of punch in a little bit if need be. Originally, I was planning on doing a typical setup where I stuck one camera on the bride in this case and the groom in this case on each side. But the way that our ceremony area was set up, we were on this crazy rocky ledge kind of thing. And so where myself and Megan, the photographer, were going to be was in this like micro valley of sorts. Like the couple was up on a little bit of a ledge, and then there was a little bit of a dip, and then another little hill that went back. So I decided to put both of the secondary angles and kind of my safety shots for the ceremony back, far back, so I could get a wide with the 28-70 and then a tight with the 135. And again, I would probably have set this up differently if it was more of a normal setup, but I stuck the A7CR back in the back, and then stuck it at 28 millimeters so I could get a wide shot of the whole area and get kind of the expanse and understanding of where we were, and didn't want it to make it too wide and crazy, but I think 28 millimeters ended up being a great focal length for that anyway. And then the vast majority was all on the FX3 and being able to just punch in and get some more reactions and things like that with this camera. So to do that, I have this Ulanzi 0Y tripod. I have two of them, and one of them has a more like a tiny video fluid head. It's actually a little bit lighter than the Peak Design one, and it was really, really nice to just be able to toss this in, and they're significantly cheaper than the Peak Design ones as well. So if you're looking for some lightweight carbon fiber travel tripods, I'm a big fan of these. I'll link them below either way, so you can check those out. And then for my audio, I obviously was using the ECM B10 as a bit of a background, kind of like backup microphone. I actually had this microphone on the A7CR because it was a little bit closer, and I just wanted to be able to get the ambient audio. And while I didn't use it for the entire thing, this is the audio handle that comes with the FX3. And then I had on there the Deity S-Mic 2S as just like a great little shotgun mic. I have this giant dead cat on here and everything to eliminate wind noise and things like that. So worst case scenario, my wireless stuff doesn't work well or doesn't capture it well enough. I'm going to be fairly close to them most of the time and directing this directly at people's mouths. And then for my wireless setup, I set the couple up with these Rode Wireless Pros. Both of these have 32-bit float audio, so they record internally in 32-bit float. So I also used the lapel, the little lav mic that comes with this set on the Groom, and I think it sounds really, really good, and I have zero issues with this set. Kind of best of both worlds. You get the live audio that you can check, and then if the audio does cut out for some crazy reason, you have the internal recordings on these as well. Now, a few things that I didn't end up either needing or have the time to actually make happen. The first of which is this little Hobolight iris light. I always need to make sure that I am able to capture anything worst case scenario. So having this tiny little light, and you can see, woof, that is bright, super bright. So that's at 100%. We clearly don't need to make it that bright. This is at 5%, and I have all these other lights on really, really bright in my office. So you can see that we have quite a bit of brightness out of this tiny little light. And you also have a slightly focusable light here. So you can go from wider to tighter, and then that's going to be really useful. Didn't end up needing this. The clients ended up getting too cold and wet by the end of the day, and so kind of cut our blue hour stuff short, but I wanted to make sure I had this, and it's definitely something that's going to sit in my bag for both photography and filmmaking. Obviously link to that below. And then the last thing that I brought along that I didn't end up using, but kind of wish I was able to, is this Hobolight Mini Max. It obviously looks like a Hasselblad camera. I'm pretty pumped on the design here. It is modular in the same way that a Hasselblad is, so I really love that setup. So this is the light. It has a focusable little lens on the front. This is a V-mount battery, so you can actually use other batteries that are V-mounts as well. But obviously, this one just looks and fits perfectly on here. It is a 40-watt light, which, depending on your needs, can be more than enough. This is at 1%. It's also bicolor, so if it's darker, you can change the color temperature and stuff. And then this lens here is focusable. so that you can either get tighter or wider and just shape the light in a way that you want. But probably some more about these on the channel to come, because I'm just so intrigued by how different they are from the other stuff on the market while still providing amazing lighting and not looking dumb. And yeah, then just super pumped on these. And then the last thing I brought that I did use, but they did not work anymore, are these Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses. You've seen them in multiple videos. I've done dedicated videos on them. And then when I got all my stuff stolen and went and got them back from people, you can watch that video up here. I was wearing these and recorded the entire confrontation on that. I started to use them during the ceremony and then turned them off about right towards the end. Took a couple clips just to I wanted to get some of the POV stuff. But since it was like a little bit of a drizzle, I was kind of going like, I don't really know what the IPX whatever rating is on these. So I should probably just turn them off just in case. So I turned them off, put them in my pocket. And then as soon as the ceremony is over, ran back, dumped these cameras off in the car, and then wiped these down, left them in the car, and they now do not work. So really bummed on that. Really was incredibly surprised that that little of rain affected this to that degree. So did a claim. We'll see what happens. I'll get back to you on if they cover that or not. But otherwise, don't wear these even in a drizzle. I live in Seattle. I wore these in Iceland. I'm really surprised that they stopped working in that scenario. And yeah, they're IPX4 rated, so they should have been able to totally have that. But all that to say, yeah, if you are going to wear these as your only pair of glasses, make sure you have a backup pair, because then I had to walk around without any glasses or anything like that for the rest of the time, which is fine, but obviously would have preferred to keep these on. So let me know your thoughts. And if you or someone else is interested in having me come and either photograph or film your upcoming wedding or elopement, I would honestly love to do a little bit more filmmaking. I think that being able to scratch that creative itch has been something that's been really fun for me. And especially knowing exactly how wedding days and elopement days go, I have a fairly decent amount of experience in the hundreds and hundreds of weddings I've done. And then if you're interested, you can see more of my wedding stuff up here. Check out my full video on the 35 to 150 up here, and then I'll see you in one of those videos.